Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to talk about Star Trek The Motion Picture from 1979. This is my old used DVD I purchased some time ago. So this is going to be the last movie from the 1970s that I'm going to talk about in this series. This was really the last major sci-fi film to be released during the decade. And it seems appropriate that it was Star Trek. This movie was a long time coming. Of course, the TV series had gone off the air in 1969. As the series continued to air on reruns, its popularity grew through the decade, and largely through fan activism, and this is when conventions started and everything, there was a major push to make a Star Trek film. Of course, Gene Roddenberry was the leading figure in this and bringing his TV show to the big screen, and it took a long time because I know there were many scripts written, a lot of high-profile writers were brought in to give their takes on what a Star Trek movie would even be. I know there were time travel stories, there were a lot of ideas were being kicked around as far as what the movie would be, and I know by the time they had a script. And even when they began shooting the film, there was still a lot on the fly that was being, I think, made up as they went along. But yeah, so finally, just as the decade ended, the movie was released, and it did fairly well. It did fairly well, and of course led to many, many more sequels. So I think what makes this film unique is how different it is from the other Star Trek movies that would come along, and this is both what I like about the film and what I criticize or find things to criticize about the film. It's always great to watch. First of all, the Jerry Goldsmith score is maybe his best score. It is just an absolutely fantastic score. Goldsmith composed the special effects. A lot of the budget went to special effects. You had a lot of big names in the special effects field who contributed to the making of this movie, so it was coming off of Star Wars, no doubt. There was just this wave momentum of more special effects for movies. The story involves, I guess it's supposed to be 10 years after the series ended, and we have Captain Kirk, who is now an admiral. We meet Spock, who is on Vulcan in studying his spirituality, trying to purge emotion from himself, finally, and those are really the only two characters we get backstories on. But basically the plot revolves around this massive organism that's heading towards Earth that's known as V'ger, that is this, I guess, like a big artificial intelligence, this massive intelligence that's just going through the galaxy, that's way beyond anybody else's comprehension. So it's the story itself is really high concept science fiction, where it's really going for like a 2001 type of idea of the nature of humanity and our place in the cosmos. It's really, really philosophical in that regard, which goes back to the TV show, which is very much a part of the TV show, and things like that. So there's also, Kirk is brought back to command the Enterprise. There's a younger captain about to take over, Captain Decker, and Kirk takes over, and there's some tension there, and a few new characters are introduced, but also the old crew is reunited on the Enterprise as well, with McCoy, Sulu, Chekhov, Uhura, and the rest. Scotty, of course, and and they're all there. So I'm sure it was great to see everyone back in 1979 in this movie. One of the criticisms is that maybe there's too much emphasis on special effects for a Star Trek film. There are a lot of scenes of characters just gazing, at the special effects, and that can maybe take you out of the film a little bit. So there's that, and I think, but there's some great sequences in the film. I think there's a really great one with Spock where he actually penetrates V'ger, and that's a really interesting scene. And there's a lot of special effects towards the end as well. So it's there's some great sequences in it. I think though the major obstacle with this movie for me has always been where the characters feel like props into this story, where you have Kirk and Spock are given character arcs, sort of, but the rest of the characters are basically seemingly there to take orders and hit buttons, and there's really not a lot going with the characters, and even the performances of Shatner and Nimoy, they feel like they're almost holding back a little bit. They're very restrained performances, very serious performances from everyone, although they do have moments. There are great moments that they have, character moments that they have in the film. I think the direction the franchise went with the sequels was more character-driven action stories that were more of a throwback to the TV show, where the future ones would feel more like elevated TV almost. And I think that was kind of the sweet spot for a Star Trek movie, where it's evocative of TV, but it feels a little bit bigger in the episode. And they also play upon, I think, our relationship with the characters and the crew, which I think was a good thing. And also having good villains is also important. And really in this movie, the motion picture, you really don't have an antagonist in the movie. I mean, V'ger, I guess, is the antagonist, but it's a whole different thing than having a very kind of human type of antagonist in the Star Trek story. So it's yeah. Like I said, the special effects, the music is really good, and it's really a landmark movie. I think, to end the decade on the fact that and one of the first times a TV show was adapted into a movie, and that's important as well. It would be curious to see if they ever do make Star Trek movies again, if they ever really try to go big like this, where they really tell an ambitious story that involves, artificial intelligence and humanity and extraterrestrials and all these things. I mean, there is kind of like this new age, as Close Encounters had that too. There is like this new age vibe to this movie as well, where the idea of characters going on their personal journeys and kind of hopefully achieving some type of transcendence once they find their answers. So there is that interesting 70s element to it as well. So so those my thoughts on Star Trek. And I know there are different versions. I think the director's edition is maybe the most watched version of this movie, which has the improved special effects and all those things as well. So so as I said, this will conclude my series on 1970s movies, and I have them all on a playlist on YouTube. If you want to go and check those out, they're all there on a playlist. And I will be coming back at some point to get into 1980s science fiction movies, and I have quite a few movies on my list I want to cover for the 1980s. So stay tuned for those. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you later. Bye.